Hello and welcome to this Come to Jesus Daily devotional as we continue in this short Easter series as we're reflecting on Jesus' last words from the Last Supper and the Upper Room Discourse from the Gospel of John. Today's devotion is entitled Jesus' Last Words on Suffering and Death. On this Good Friday, we see that Jesus' suffering and death were not accidental, but according to God's plan. His gracious gift to us, to the undeserving. Let's read John 13, 18 to 19. I am not referring to all of you. I know those I have chosen, but this is to fulfill this passage of Scripture. He who shared my bread has turned against me. I am telling you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am who I am. John 13, 18 to 19. Now, these words were just after Jesus has washed his disciples' feet, and he washed Judas's feet amongst them as well. In this act, he is pointing to himself as the suffering servant who, through his death, will bring cleansing and forgiveness to all who put their faith in him. Jesus makes it clear his betrayal and death are a part of God's plan, his promise. He tells them before it happens, so that when it unfolds, they will understand that the cross was not a tragedy, but the fulfillment of God's gracious will. So firstly, Jesus' suffering was according to God's plan. Throughout his passion, we see that Jesus is not a victim of circumstances. He is sovereign. Before Pilate, the Roman governor, he says, John 19:11, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. Even Pilate, even Rome, even the greatest rulers on earth, like Pilate, are under Jesus' command and will and rule, even whilst he's suffering. Peter later declares in Acts 2:23, this man was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. What a mystery, right? People are responsible for their sin, even nailing Jesus to the cross, but ultimately it's under God's plan. The cross then is both the result of human sin and the outworking of God's saving purposes. Secondly, Jesus' death was a willing sacrifice. Even in his final moments, Jesus is in control. In John 19:30, we read, when he had received the drink, Jesus said, it is finished. With that, he bowed his head, gave up his spirit. Jesus gave up his spirit. He didn't have his life taken from him. He gave it up. His suffering and death were a part of his will, his love, his grace. Jesus gave up his spirit for us. He was in control. Thirdly, it is finished. The work is complete. When Jesus cries out, it is finished, he is declaring that the work of salvation has been accomplished. Finished. Nothing more needs to be added. You need to add nothing more. The cross has achieved everything for you, everything necessary for salvation, forgiveness, your justification, the foundation of your sanctification, your transformation, it's all in the cross. This is not a cry of defeat, it is finished, but a cry of victory. So in response, Jesus' final words on suffering and death remind us that his life was given, not taken. At the cross, God's plan of salvation reached its fulfillment. Because of Jesus, we can rest in the finished work. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing can be taken away. Today, let's rest in the love and sovereignty of God, as Scripture assures us. Romans 8:32, he who did not spare his one and only Son, but gave him up, and Jesus gave himself up as well, gave him up for us all, how will he not also along with him graciously give us all things? God bless you.